Oh, okay. Wow. All right. Good time to kick off. Well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Good time to kick off, given that we just had a big cricket game last night. We've got a couple of fellow Kiwi cricketers who've come in, and
What game? What game was on last night?
let's move to table tennis then.
We're same ball, like
Yeah.
different way to play.
I mean, we could talk about why China is doing so well in table tennis. But it's such a privilege, as to have the opportunity to moderate all of you. As an entrepreneur, my inspiration has always come from sports people, and there are so many parallels that you can draw. And the way I thought we could frame this discussion is, obviously, what you guys do best is the pursuit of excellence. That's why you're at this level and on this stage. There's big learnings in teamwork and leadership. And the third piece, of course, is resilience and dealing with, not just successes, but failures as well. So, I'd love to kick off perhaps with Stephen, with you. And then, because I think there's obviously reasons to ask you a lot of questions about last night. I mean, what went wrong? Did Kane Williamson call you?
No, he didn't. He's too good a player to do that. Look, we were just beaten by a better side, and that, from a New Zealand point of view, is a lot easier to take. They played well, New Zealand, but India were just a little bit better.
Great. Now, in the pursuit of excellence, you have one distinction, and that actually allows me to then come to Yaping after that, is you've been the youngest cricket captain at the age of 23. What was the process you went through to actually get to that stage? Not just be one of the greatest batsmen in the field, but then actually become a captain, and arguably the longest serving captain.
Well, I was very lucky to start with. I think to get the privilege of captaining a team is something that I certainly didn't take lightly, but it was also to do with the timing of the team that I was involved with. We'd had a transition of senior players that had moved out, and the decision makers above decided to invest in a young captain and give them some time. And I often look at that and compare that with business and leadership. In sport, cricket captains tend to get about 2 years. And if it's not working out, India, it might be 6 months for some, but and away you go. But it took me, I think, 5-6 years to really start understanding captaincy and leadership in cricket. So if you look at some of the leaders in cricket and then in business, I wonder whether we're cutting a lot of good people short, because it needs time to develop relationships. It needs time to understand the game. And me, coming from a young age, I had to develop a really inclusive style. So I had to wrap a lot of my people around me to get the answers, because I didn't have them. But the most valuable thing I was afforded when I got appointed at that young age was time. And I had the time to make mistakes. And with mistakes, became more experienced. And by the end, I became very, secure in my role and understood the game very well. So I was very grateful for time.
Thank you. And Stephen, while you were getting ready to take over the reins as captain of New Zealand, we have a panelist here who was ready to retire at 24. Yaping?
Yeah.
Yep. Over 8 years, I'm going to call it out, 2 Olympic gold medalists over 2 Olympic Games, 8 years consecutively the World Table Tennis Champion, and you retired at 24. I think that deserves an applause first.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, most people are actually still trying to figure out what they want to do in life then, and you were retiring. But tell us, what got you to that stage? Obviously, very early in your life, and you've talked about some of the challenges. We'll talk about some of the challenges that you faced to get to that. But what was the process you followed in that pursuit of excellence? 8 years in a row.
Well, this is so difficult actually, because of 24, almost like the highest, the peak in my life. So how can I do now? So actually, it's facing difficulties because it's when I so young and meet the top and meet the peak. So I think, but before that, I met so many difficult and challenges and the stereotypes because I'm too short. Nobody think I won't be good in the future. But because my father also a ping pong champion, probably I have the gym. I have a really talent for table tennis. But I have to solve the problem is the height. So I have been moving fast, playing fast, and I can't copy with the taller players' playing style. So I have my own way, definitely. So which is extremely hard to make innovation. Even for the racket, for the rubber. I use the long ping ball, which is normally used for the defense players, the playing style, but I totally changed to play attacking playing style. So that's why I'm dominated world for the longest #1 ranking. So I think that is innovation is important.
Yeah, and as you said earlier, you have gene, they have talent. It's a conversation
we can make mixed doubles, yeah.
But, talking about retiring at 24, and as I said, a lot of people are still trying to figure out what they're doing at 24. This young lady here for sure was, because you took up motorsport at the age of 30.
That's right. I went the opposite way from you guys. I started at 30, but my basis of sport was always innate from the age of 6 years old. I'm a little bit of a serial athlete. So these guys went depth-wise, I went breadth-wise. So I've gone from running track at school doing the nationals, I went into mountain bike championships, I went into motorsport at 30 with zero background, just the ability of maybe some hand-eye coordination and naive talent, and into triathlons now. So I've taken across a breadth rather than depth. And that's really translated as well, because with the motorsport starting at 30, that was the big parallel for me also to get into the business side of things.
Did you ever think that perhaps your entire, serial athlete is very similar to serial entrepreneur, and everything you've defined about yourself sound like you're a little bit naive sometimes, a little bit bold, not a little bit, very bold, and certainly have a lot of passion for things. I think that really sums up entrepreneurship. Do you think that some of that naivety is really important to pursue your dreams?
Absolutely. I'm what they called a third culture kid. I was born in UK. My dad was English-Polish. My mother's from Singapore. I was kind of plucked out of UK, came to Singapore. I was always being told, you look different, you sound different, you're doing things different. Just the constant noise of, why are you doing this? Why are you saying this? I felt like I was always challenged. And I always felt like I was different, and it was bad to be different, because I didn't fit in that way. But I believe with that it actually created my mindset and the things that I did, going back to your question. I think it's, I think having that naiveness, it created curiosity out of me. It allowed me to do things. Before, I used to say it was cheap thrills, the things that I did, because I was so much into extreme sports. But actually, I don't think it was cheap thrills at all. I think, now that I'm a bit older, there was some calculation in the things that I did. I did things that I think I would be good at, that I could achieve something, because I'm an all or nothing kind of person. And this really helped me, especially in my later years, at 30, to delve a little bit into the sport that also got involved in the business, because motorsport really is 80% business, 20% the actual racing, and all the things around that. And I think that really, that kind of, molded me in a way. Yeah.
Oh, and I think there's, we'll get to some of the other things you've done in between, because you have actually done quite a fair bit in between. But I want to move over to Geoff. It's Cricket World Cup time. I know New Zealand's out. Just in full disclosure, I'm Indian Kiwi, so I win 100% of the game last night, right? So I was a guaranteed winner. So, but Geoff, you have the distinction of having taken, you have a record of having taken 20 wickets in the '99 World Cup, and obviously you're a fast bowler. So for those who don't follow cricket, you got to turn your arm around and 6 times every time you do an over, and it's quite strenuous, and you had a lot of injuries that you had to get through, and you've beautifully transitioned your career from there into, I guess, leadership of New Zealand cricket, and then your own venture. How was that journey for you? And what was going on in your mind as you were thinking about, hey, what's next for me after I taken this big haul and in the '99 World Cup, you were a celebrity, and where do you move on from there?
Yeah, well, actually, it happened before that. I was fortunate in that I didn't have a lot of talent. So,
oh, you got the gene too?
So, yeah, exactly. No, I didn't get the gene either. But for me, what that allowed me to do was to go to university and get a degree. And I guess what that allowed me from that point was to have that freedom of then being able to go out and chase my dream. And, you know, I watched a good mate of mine as a kid get selected for New Zealand at a really young age. We'd played some underage cricket together. To see him make a New Zealand team was a massive moment for me. And actually what I started to believe was the people like that I'd played with, and maybe, just maybe if I worked hard, I might have a crack. You know, the reality for me, I played 4 first-class games, which is for our state, before I got picked for the New Zealand team. So what that also meant was I was doing all of my learning really while I was playing. And that's not ideal. And I wouldn't suggest that to anything. But I guess if you relate that then to business, you know, for many of us in the business field, we are learning as we go. And I don't think we should be afraid of that. We're all take on advice. We're getting good governance advice. You know, as a executive, we're taking on feedback all the time. And I think that was a big lesson for me. But coming back to it, I just had that, I guess I was allowed that freedom to then go out and give it a crack. You know, I finished cricket at the age of 27 with about 7 fractures in my back, but I wouldn't replace one of those. Everything was worthwhile. You know, I got to share amazing moments with good mates representing my country that I never really dreamed of. I was more hoping I'd represent my state. But to come out and have that opportunity then, I think I'm a good example of a person that if you put a bit of work in, then your dreams can come true.
No, absolutely. And you know, actually, you just set me up for a question I want to ask Stephen. What was he like? I mean, what was he like as part of the team? What was his discipline like? What do you think gave him that success in the '99 World Cup?
Well, I think it's partly because he had to work so hard to get there that he had success. So a lot of players have natural talent and often don't reach peak performance through that because they take shortcuts or things aren't as hard for them. But when you get a player that has to work very hard, both physically and mentally, to get into the team, you get a product or a teammate or a player captain where you just put them on autopilot because they have to work hard. The only thing you have to wrap around is tactics. And sometimes Geoff talks about the small window he had of playing. The tactics side became very important in a captain-player relationship. But no, Geoff was a great player. And during that time, that World Cup, I think he was equal wicket-taker with the great Shane Warne. So that's the calibre of performance he had.
Were there any similarities between him and Shane? I mean, of course, Shane was a bit slower on the pitch, but
their nightlife was pretty similar. But yeah, no, look, both aggressive, and Geoff was very aggressive when he played. Fast left-arm seam bowler. You see them now; they're very valuable in the IPL, which is a franchise sport. But Geoff was a left-arm bowler that had the ability to swing the ball, which was an asset. So it was very valuable.
Oh, great! Now I'm going to come back to the franchise sport piece because that is a great example of sport actually turning into entrepreneurship. But I want to come back to Yaping. We wanted to talk about teamwork. Now, people often forget, you know, obviously you've been a gold medalist many times. I think I made sure everyone understood that, the context of it. But it does take a team behind that, doesn't it? Even though it's an individual gold, there's a lot of people that help you get there. What was your biggest takeaway from a teamwork perspective, and how the experience worked for you?
Definitely, everybody knows the Chinese team so strong in table tennis, and we dominated world for almost like 70 years. But it kind of table tennis is kind of individual sport, but as a Chinese team, we always make together, work together. Like many of players learn to other foreign players the way of playing and also techniques or tactics, and train with us. And particular, because the system are quite different here than here, so we usually sometimes to ask the men's players to learn and play against with us. So let us more competitive, more stronger, and more faster, more the speed. So I think that's really helpful. So we have always as work like one team rather than one individuals. So I think that also for the coaches, we have so many world champions when they retired and after they become the coach. So they so experienced in the Olympics, in the World Cup, World Championships. So give us lots of the source, opinion and the experience. I think we all always work together, helping the women's, because the Chinese women's always have done better than the men's in the international competitions, not only in table tennis, in whole. So I think that's we use fully for the whole systems to helping the ladies, women's, to better training conditions.
And your dad was your coach? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how did that affect the relationship? Because there's a lot of people who have family businesses and
that's a good
families.
idea. That's good questions actually. And now I'm also coaching my son.
Oh wow.
So also my position is one training. I'm the coach. He have to listen to me, everything, to train, to run, to practice, no doubt. But after that, I'm a mother. And then to helping him and feed him as well, look after him. So I think as my father the same. When I was trained and he was my coach. But after that, he's my father.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. And Claire, you've done multiple businesses with your husband.
That's right.
Yeah. It's a very interesting dynamic and teamwork. I've never really done business with my wife, but I have had an instance where we worked together, and I can tell you it's quite hard to survive. How's it been for you? Because I spoke to you both the other day, and you both looked pretty happy. Was that just for the camera, or?
No, I mean, to be honest, I think actually we have a lot of friends who always ask us, "You guys okay? How are you doing?" I can tell you, we never argue about the big things. It's the small things. Who's shoveling the cat's poop today? It's the small things that you kind of talk about in the household. But the rest of it, I mean, the first year together of doing business, so the multiple things we've done, we've had more of a purist go-kart circuit. We then did electric, battery-powered circuit, using your software for ECUs and whatnot. Then we went to robotics, and we have like a marketing and media company together, and a few other ventures that we're in the process of doing. And really, it was finding the boundaries for the first year, and that ego check of knowing what is your strength and what is your strength. We don't like to talk about weaknesses, because for us, the art was knowing that my strengths was really details. I'm very good at processes. He's a strategist. So knowing our strengths as a team, he's great at delegating. I'm not so great at delegating. I'm one of those people, apparently a type 4, who likes to take all the work and throw the bone and go chase it. I'll get it. That's me. And, I know my place in the relationship. And once we've known that, we've been able to then carry that on to the different businesses that we have. And sure, there's tiny moments, but we always talk about the winning mentality. And to put everything aside from that. And what is our real reason when talking to each other for saying the certain things that we do? And that's really been a very important basis for us doing work together, the communication. And I really had to learn the hard way, coming from a lot of individual sports. In the motor racing, it's actually teamwork. It's all teams. You've got your engineers, you've got your mechanics. You spend 16 to 18 hours a day sometimes with these people. If they don't like you and you don't like them, you're in trouble, So really having to learn that communication basis from all of those things has really been key. And I think we've got a good thing going.
No, absolutely. And when you and I spoke, you referenced the word ego
Yes.
in teamwork. Yeah? You want to elaborate on that?
Ego really has been, I think, the census of a lot of things for me. And ego tends to crop up at different new projects. Even as a mother, I mothered 2 young kids. I formed new ego because I didn't want to be seen as a mother. I didn't want people to, it was a weird concept because I was like, I'm an athlete, I do business, I'm not a mother, even though I loved being a mother. But the ego per se, with the motor racing, that's when I think the biggest ego I had. Because I was like, yeah, I'm good, I can learn this. But really, I had to learn the science of driving. I had to learn the brain retrain and letting go of ego, to receive feedback, to receive communication skills, to talk about things. And ego not just with the team, but with my peers, with my mentors, which was one of the biggest things that was gifted to me at 30 years old, having a mentor. And that really taught me that if I wanted to excel, I mean, we're finding 0.1 seconds for one corner, which is ridiculous. You're finding 1 second for 2 years to get on that podium. I mean, that's kind of mental to a lot of people, to go out and look for a blink of an eye, even less. But I mean, all these things really built who I am, to learn to let go of ego. And every time I think I need a check, I think about that. I think about the processes I went through and how do I go back to let go of ego to move forward to get where I want to go.
Yeah. No, look, and I think ego is a trait that can be well channeled, right? I think, Stephen, when we were chatting earlier today in the morning, you referenced the term ego as well. And you talked about how winning was so important for you. Yeah? I mean, which is quite ironic, because I think if I did a poll here and asked, like, top 3 most humble cricketers ever, I suspect, along with Rahul Dravid, I made the mistake of actually referencing Rahul Dravid as the best batsman ever, but I fixed that. But you'd be in the top 3 most humble cricketers, yet you felt you had this trait as ego that pushed you to win and push for that win. So where do you see that trait being how does that get channelized? Because entrepreneurs could be leveraging that trait themselves.
Well, the Kiwi trait, and you've come out the closet today, but being a Kiwi yourself, is to be quite humble. So you learn early on that you've got to suppress some of your ego, even though it burns inside. Cricket's a really unique sport. It's deemed a team sport, but it's actually it's a combination of a lot of selfish events. Really, it's a bowler like Geoff running in to bowl Virat Kohli. So there's the first player will set the tone, the batter will then respond, and then you've got the rest of the team that will follow. And as soon as you break that down and get away from trying to wrap the team methodology around it, you can start doing some pretty good things. So I like ego. Managing ego can be a challenge, but creating that selfishness and managing that to become a little bit selfless is a really important aspect of a cricket team. So one of the other things I believe is happening is that in an attempt to be high performance or cutting edge in business, is we're actually forgetting about relationships and people. So what we've done at the franchise at Chennai is give ownership back to players. My leadership model is not controlling, it's about empowering. So right from when you wake up, there's been a trend to get a sheet under the door or let players know on their phones what their day looks like, which I think is dumbing down the player to a degree. So we've stripped all that back, right back to the point where as a cricket player, you choose whether you're going to come to training or not. As coach, I'm going to set up training, high-performance training when you come down, but you wake up and decide if you're going to come. You do not have to come. If you think you're fine and in good form, then you own your space. When you get to training, don't come and ask me what you should be doing. You tell me what you're going to do, and I'll facilitate the training around. It seems pretty simple, but for cricketers and cricket teams for a lot of years, it's based on, and some teams at international level now, there's a lot of whiteboard data. You're going to bat here, you're going to do that, you're going to do that. And the whole time you're taking away a little bit of ownership. Go back to the selfish aspect. It's one batter facing one bowler in front of 70,000, 80,000, 110,000 in the meter bat in a World Cup final in about a week, 3 days' time. You want the player to be making as many decisions as possible. And I really like that around business as well. There's team meetings. How on earth can you get 12, 15 people around, have a team meeting, and motivate and get messages across and think you're going to cover everybody? Personal relationships are really important for trading information, so investing in your people rather than your method, I think can be revisited. In an attempt to be high performance, I think we're losing the fact that relationships and people are still going to drive you forward. So that's sort of it's really the ethos around my coaching, and it's given me really interesting insight into deeper insight to players than what I would have got if I was coaching them in a traditional way.
There's a few questions. I'm taking a few questions from the audience. This one for Stephen says, it's a very insightful question. Who will win the World Cup 2023?
Well, India's my home away from home. So now that New Zealand's out, I do hope India go on and win it.
Yeah, I think that deserves applause. Yeah. And then for Yaping, there's a question for you. And I'll read it out. After knowing that you're the best in the world, how did you get used to being a normal person again? Or did life ever feel normal, like after you retired, after being known universally as the best probably ever in your sport? How did it go back? What was it like for you to go back to normal life?
This is a very good question, actually. Because I'm so young and start to become world champion and be famous, particularly in China, I can go. It's hard me to go like normal people life, shopping somewhere. So I'm the most happy time, I think, spent as the student in the UK. I'm studying there, and no one knows me. And I can go anywhere, and to supermarket, and to go somewhere to have a tea. So, which is also why I go back to China, why I finish my study. Now it's like a normal person. Sometimes I like to play someone in table tennis because in China we have so many fans, and probably we have over 1 billion Chinese fans. So now I'm more likely to do something like sports for all and play with others, particularly to talk with students, young kids in primary school, high school, and to let them to introduce the table tennis and let them to have a fun with the sports. I think sports teach them a lot after schooling, after class. So we can see many young kids now started to loving sports. Because we have so many different sports quite good at now. So table tennis definitely one of the most still popular sports in China. But cricket, we are just started to learn. So we should let you two guys to China to introduce more about cricket. But I think that is also we should also congratulations for the India people, I think. We can see from the Asian Games just we finished in Hangzhou. I think Indian come up so quickly. And the one women's doubles in table tennis beat Chinese girl, which is shocked in China, totally shocked. And so we just, we can't believe it. So fast and so coming up from India. So we should congratulate for the India people and Singapore as well. And also very good at table tennis as well. And definitely we all train together always, and we send the coach come here to teach Singapore national team. So I think table tennis, we have a capability, a responsibility to promote to the world, not only dominated by Chinese. I think this is also my responsibility. I used to be as ITTF, Table Tennis Federations, use my name as women's development programs to give a talk to the coaches around the world to let more coaches know how to improve their coaching levels. And also now we have this kind of programs to helping young girls interested and then send them to China to train. So definitely we wanted to have more people and started to interested in table tennis. So this is our Chinese responsibility to more promote about ping pong.
Now, thank you. And earlier you mentioned, Yaping, that China has dominated table tennis for 70 years.
Yeah.
70 years. I have. That actually leads me to my question. I'm going to improvise in the question from the audience for Geoff. So I know it's been rough 24 hours for you guys. I mean, you got on a flight, you had to sit through that game, watch it. Stephen didn't. We actually did mention that we were playing the sport at this event that we had last night. Stephen decided not to come because obviously, I know it must have been a sad moment. I can say this because I can be on any side. But the question is, there's something about sport and the whole, we talked about pursuit of excellence and just shaping a nation and its spirit. And you're seeing that in India, as India is becoming an economic power and continues to grow. You're seeing that transformation in sport as well. So I think the two are very connected. So the question is, I know it's not about the cricket, it's about the rugby. And it's for Geoff. So Stephen, I won't put you in the spot.
Thank you.
Yeah. The All Blacks have dominated that sport for 100 years. Yeah. We lost the World Cup. And that was on a technical thing. And we're going to come to, I got a question for Stephen around technology in sport as well. The question was, what makes New Zealand punch above its weight in a sport like, and taking an example of a sport like cricket. I mean, we've seen that with the All Blacks in rugby. We see that with the Black Caps in cricket. I mean, I think it's not always about the number of wins that you have. It's also about just getting through it. And New Zealand's demonstrated sheer grit and a number of World Cups. I mean, there's, what do you think makes a nation tick or to punch above its weight?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's a number of things. Sport plays a massive role in our communities and our societies. So if you're brought up, I guess, with the connection, with the passion for sport, then that leads on to learning about things such as teamwork, such as tenacity. There's a number of different things. The search for excellence, which doesn't always eventuate. And I think for New Zealanders, they learn to fight. We're a country of circa 5 million people. We're a little wee island in the way down the bottom of the world. Yet, on a global stage, we compete. Not on everything, but in a lot of things. And I think that's born from the fact that we know to be successful, we've got to go beyond what others might do. And I think our culture is that we're prepared to do the hard work in the search for that one moment. I think if you asked any, whether it be cricket player, rugby player, gymnast, whatever it might be, they're working towards that one moment. And one advantage we do have as a small nation is that you've got a reasonable good chance of representing your country. A nation such as India, you've got to be seen. If you do the work in New Zealand, then you can actually get exposed, and then you get a chance. But coming back to it, why do we battle? Why do we compete? I think because we have those hard knocks early, just like in business. You don't always have a plain sailing sort of situation or journey. And I think for us, we have those bumps in the road early on, so we have that tenacity. We're very fortunate that because of those successes, and Yaping, you mentioned it before, that actually because it's such a small place, that a lot of our former professional athletes come back in the system and stay in the system, so our youth get a lot of exposure. So that knowledge and that experience is passed on. But I also think there is that little bit of naivety that actually we don't really necessarily know what is going on outside the world. We just go and compete, and we have a bit of fun along the way, and we take a little bit of that underdog tactic with us. So we don't have the pressure that other nations have. And often, and I think now great leaders are understanding the importance of that. That actually, it's not about creating this big hype and big tension. No, it's about creating an environment that allows your athletes to go out and relax, enjoy themselves, be themselves, and perform at their best. And often with that comes a whole lot of success, and then that's self-fulfilling.
Yeah. Anyone want to add to that? Stephen?
Oh, it sounds good.
Yeah. Well, we'll get down to technology, and I actually want to talk to Claire about, again, your role. You're obviously doing a fine balancing act and oscillating between being a serial athlete and a serial entrepreneur, right? And a number of your entrepreneur ventures have involved technology, right? Do you see a massive intersection of technology in sport?
An intersection? Oh, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, motorsport itself, if I go back to the basis of what I was known for, I mean, data collection, everything in motorsport, it's about that. The data never lies. I mean, even from the basis of the very basic, when I went in technology with go-karting, I talked about battery power, electric, and that's just such a growing industry. It's still continuing on. I don't know where that is going. And it's funny because even though I did electric batteries and stuff, I'm not convinced entirely on EVs yet still. But yeah, I mean, technology-wise, I mean, it's a crazy aspect, really. Everything that I do, when I went into even finding the parallel between motorsport and technology, going into robotics, there's so many parallels between it, really. And using technology, I mean, nowadays, I mean, just like motorsport, it allows you to know where you can go, how far, how much you can push, how much to pull back, what you can't do, where do you run out of talent, and where do you need the technology to get into it. And nowadays, even for me, I'm a very keen cyclist. I do the triathlons and stuff. The amount of technology that we use, even the data in the new watches that comes with your power, your heart rate, everything is so consumed by this technology. Sometimes it is good to take a break from it, because I feel like when you say, just now Steve was saying, to let the players be their own person without having to interfere, it can disrupt you. It can disrupt your ability to play better because you're always on the data and the technology involved in it. But for me, I enjoy it. I love technology being part of that because data is about who I am. It's about the things that I do around me. And it's crazy to think with my young kids where it's going to be in future. I mean, I do kind of hope that there will be almost a part of time where that can all be stripped back, and we don't have the basis too much of that, and we can just enjoy ourselves. I find it sometimes with sport, it's hard to enjoy yourself with all the technology involved. And some days I just throw that away, all the data and the information, and just go out and do what I need to do.
Yeah, no, obviously it plays a big role in motorsport. You see, even in the F1 in Singapore, you see Oracle cars and HP cars, and so all of these technology brands that are so involved, and yes, data is at the heart of it. But Stephen, it doesn't always work in your favor, does it? Does it? What's your view of the use of technology in sport?
Yeah, I think I'm more a favour of Claire's last statement about part of the romance of sport is the emotion that comes with winning or losing, and there is a saying that it's a great plan until you get punched in the nose. And so I look at cricket, which isn't as data-driven as motor racing or a lot of other sports. It's about the technology is bats or balls, so it's pretty simple. But your main weapon is, again, the player. So how can you upskill them with technology and use technology without putting too many caveats on performance? Our ultimate performance in what I do in cricket is about runs. In baseball, it's homers. In bowling, it's about wickets. So it's really easy to measure. So really concentrate on what the player is going to need, the person is going to need under pressure. And I do worry that we're becoming an answer-driven society, so that now all the answers are given to cricket players about where someone's going to bowl to them. There's footage every night you can look where he's going to bowl, where your weaknesses are, where your strengths are, and that's all shared. But players are absorbing this at a huge rate of knots, thinking this is the best way for them to perform. But the game evolves. The game moves so quickly. It can be one ball to the next, can be quite different. And if you're looking at your weaknesses, you don't think the opposition are doing that. So you must keep evolving and using not technology to get you through, but technology to get you, evolve you past that stage. It's almost in the past tense if you're too involved in the technology at that point. So we look at a lot of things about how players carry stress. So the three things in cricket tend to be around shoulders and neck, hands and jaw. So we had a lot of young bowlers who were running in and they're clenching their jaw so hard, giving them headaches and not being able to perform well. And quite simply, with expert advice, was to get them to smile. So by smiling, you relax. It's a bit disarming as the batsman's down the other end. He's got all these fast bowlers like Geoff running and smiling at him. They had to back away a few times. But quite simply arming your people with techniques to get through the hardest times rather than throwing technology and expecting the answer to be there. Things change. And the ability for a human to an athlete to a business person to solve problems is still the key, and doing that in real time, that still interests me a lot. And I just worry that we're bypassing that to get to answers without actually upskilling the next generation with the method to do that.
I agree. Perhaps the Rugby World Cup results might have been different if technology was...
Yeah, that's the romance. So you win some, you lose some, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it hasn't been our year, that's for sure.
Yeah, wasn't really a big fan of technology at 4:30 a.m. when I was watching the game. But question just on, sport franchise. We talked about if we look at sport as an enterprise, the IPL has been, the Indian Premier League has probably been the best example. Now you see cricket as a sport extending into the US, and we were all chatting earlier with some of the Thai folks who are here from the US and talking about how that's setting up and people are bidding for teams there. We've seen not just resilience in people, since we talk about adaptability and resilience. The entire sport, I mean, if we look at it, it started off as it was a 5-day sport. In the 70s and 80s, it became a 1-day sport. And now it's a few hours with the T20.
It was even timeless at one point. There was a timeless test that got called off after 14 days. They had to catch the boat.
Well, I guess, yeah, it's hard to miss the boat. It took a while to get there. But you've been widely regarded as one of the most versatile players that has actually fit every format. And not just that, you've actually gone ahead to coach arguably the most successful T20 format team after your tenure as a captain in Test cricket, 1-day cricket. What do you think it takes to have that adaptability?
It's a number of things. I think understanding the landscape, which is a little bit, it's getting outside your bubble, so making sure that you're aware of what's happening in your line of work. Your competitors, yes, you're taking note, but also other environments which can affect what you do. So cricket has gone from becoming a sport to entertainment. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that, because as a business, the game is now competing with Bollywood, Hollywood, restaurants. The dispensable income is now cricket's main concern or want or desire, TV broadcasting rights. So once you move into the entertainment factor, the game starts gearing up towards the masses. And it's not necessarily about the game. So balancing the integrity of the game versus the business of the game is very closely related and a constant battle. But cricket, no doubt at the moment, is in the entertainment space and will stay there for some time. The romance of the game is keeping the 5-day. We have a game that goes for 5 days, and the history of that is keeping it being played at the highest level, but I'm not sure for how long. There's too many other things to do now. 5 days to concentrate on one sport. The sport of cricket has never been followed by more people, but it's watched live less. So the interest is high, but the traditional way of making money from it has changed quite dramatically. And TV rights and entertainment now rule the world.
Yeah, TV rights is a big thing. Yaping, I have a question for you. I actually have a question for all four of you. I'm going to start with you. It was an unplanned question. I'm just going to put it out there. Since we're talking about sports and entrepreneurship, each one of you, I want you to give me the first entrepreneur that comes to mind. Like, if you had a chance to go back and be a business person to start with rather than a sports person, who would you want to be?
Who do I?
If you had a chance to go back in your life, start all over again, and not be a sports person, but be a business person, who was your role model? Who would you have wanted to be?
That's hard. I still wanted to become myself.
As a business person?
Yeah.
Okay, no, wonderful. Geoff?
Yeah, it's a tricky question. The obvious answer is to throw out there a couple of names that have, high-profile entrepreneurs. I take an approach, and it's I guess pushing the question away a wee bit, but I get inspiration, like in our meeting today with the Thai guys, where actually there's a number of different people that can influence you and your life. So I like to take a broader approach, and I think everyone's got a value to bring in if you're prepared to listen. So I don't have one person. I have multiple people.
Right. Well, my answer would have been Ayrton Senna, but no, I'm just kidding. As a sports person, but Stephen.
Yeah, I've got an interesting guy from New Zealand who created a vodka called 42 Below.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
His name's Geoff Ross. And it resonated with me because I was transitioning a little bit from out of the game into business. And I thought, being a captain for 10, 12 years, I was going to be a good business person, which wasn't the case. And he had a saying. He wrote a book creating this vodka 42 Below, which was the longitude latitude where he made it in New Zealand, just in Wellington. His book title was Every Bastard Says No. And that struck with me. I thought I didn't know what he was talking about, but now I've moved into a little bit more business and trying to raise money and float ideas, the entrepreneurial idea. It just resonates that there's more no's than yeses. So the resilience that he had from a small country to then take this to a worldwide vodka, a well-recognized vodka, but that saying stuck with me, and I didn't understand it, but I'm understanding it more and more these days.
We should have a sequel and talk about actual transitioning of sports people, because New Zealand actually has a very high proportion of former cricketers and rugby players, the All Blacks, who've actually gone into business. Juice.
Not necessarily successfully, but we've gone into business.
Vodka, juice, and many very successfully, though.
Yeah.
So, Claire.
Same like Geoff. I think I definitely have thought about this before, and I would like to take different things from different people. Value system, probably still from my dad, for the values that he's given me, certain things that he's done and he said. Business-wise, not so much. I would leave that for you. But business-wise, actually, when he was alive, he was 103 years old. It was my husband's grandfather.
Wow.
And he was some of the old school pioneers back in the day. He was a doctor. He was a land and building developer. And the stories that he had were phenomenal, just going back of how he did these deals, how he got to know the relationship base. I love the old school way of a handshake, of doing things, and the loyalty and the trust that they have, which I find sometimes very hard today. And then other systems of mentality throughout the sports people. One thing I saw just now was I've never really had a sports person growing up who I admired. But I mentioned to you that when Serena Williams had her first kid and she went back trying to win another championship again, she said, "Why should I think of anything less of myself at 36?" And that just connected with me. And that has always stuck with me. So I value certain things like this. But yeah, I've plucked it from all over, things that I'd want to be breath-wise.
Now, look, absolutely fantastic. I know we're out of time. I have to say, big fan moment for me as well, sitting with you guys. I can admit that my idols, people I've been inspired by, are sports people. Just the amount of resilience, your pursuit of excellence, and the leadership you demonstrate in so many ways. So, congratulations for what you do, and good luck for everything ahead. And thank you for being part of this. I'm so privileged. Thank you.
Thank you.